Captain Karks clicked his mandibles in disbelief, all four eyes widening as he stared at the holographic display.
You're telling me these humans evolved on a planet with 70% surface covered by a highly corrosive universal solvent? Actually, sir, Lieutenant VZ adjusted her translation implant nervously, that's not even the most concerning aspect.
The bridge of the Galactic Council exploration vessel, Eternal Curiosity, had fallen unusually silent. Even the normally loquacious maintenance drones seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, their usual whirring reduced to an anxious hum. KRX, pride of the Zexer Space Force and self-proclaimed only Deathworlder crazy enough to make captain, leaned forward in his command chair. The reinforced titanium alloy creaked under his considerable weight, a necessity for someone evolved on a 2.1G world. Defined not even the concerning part, he said slowly.
Vina pulled up another hologram, this one showing atmospheric composition readings.
Their atmosphere is approximately 21% pure oxygen.
KX actually fell out of his chair, his exoskeleton clattering against the deck. That's impossible. The combustion risk alone.
Oh, it gets better, Vina continued, warming to her subject with the enthusiasm only a xenobiologist could muster for potentially lethal planetary conditions. They evolved in an environment with regular electrical atmospheric discharges, seasonal megastorms, active plate tectonics, and periodic ice ages. Their planet hosts over 500 species of obligate predators weighing over 50 kilograms, and that's just counting the currently surviving ones. KX hauled himself back into his chair, mandibles twitching.
And they survive this? How intelligent are we talking about here?
They've achieved faster than light travel, VZ replied.
KX whispered, how did we miss them until now?
Well, VZ brought up yet another hologram, this one showing a spiral arm of the galaxy with a small region highlighted in red. They're from what we designated as the dead zone. That region we assumed was uninhabitable due to the density of Class 4 through 9 death worlds.
You mean to tell me, KX said slowly, that we found intelligent life in the sector we marked here be dragons on our star charts?
Technically, sir, I believe the official designation was navigation hazard, extreme environmental conditions, but yes.
And humans, well, they don't just survive there, they thrive. The bridge fell silent again as the implications sank in.
The Zishi had always prided themselves on being the galaxy's premier deathworlders. Their homeworld, with its crushing gravity and caustic atmosphere, had produced a species of hardy warriors that other races regarded with a mixture of fear and respect. But this was something else entirely.
Pull up their first contact protocols, KX ordered, trying to maintain some semblance of professional detachment. Let's see how they handled diplomacy.
Sir, the sensor operator's voice crackled with alarm, unidentified vessel just dropped out of FTL.
It's broadcasting on all frequencies. A new voice filled the bridge, speaking in surprisingly good galactic standard. Attention alien vessel, this is the human merchant ship Bob's your uncle. We noticed you scanning our colony and thought we'd pop by to say hello. Also, we brought snacks. Fair warning, they're a bit spicy. KX's mandibles worked silently for a moment before he found his voice. Did they just casually FTL jump next to us to offer us food?
Affirmative, sir.
They're also requesting permission to dock.
They say, and I quote, "We've got some great stories about this one time we accidentally terraformed a moon by spilling coffee, and we'd love to swap tales over dinner."
KRX started laughing. He couldn't help it. After 3 decades of space exploration, he thought he'd seen everything, but this was new. Vina, what's your professional opinion as our xenobiologist? Should we accept their invitation? Vina was already reviewing the preliminary scans of the human vessel.
Sir, their ship's life support is maintaining Earth-standard conditions.
That means their snacks probably evolved in an environment that would kill most species in the galaxy.
Their idea of a bit spicy might be classified as a chemical weapon by Galactic Council standards.
Perfect, KX clapped his primary hands together. Open a channel. I want to meet these humans.
What followed was arguably the most interesting first contact in Galactic Council history. The humans, as it turned out, were exactly as crazy as their planetary conditions suggested, and then some. The human captain, one Sarah Chan, strode onto the Eternal Curiosity with the casual confidence of someone who had evolved on a planet where death by lightning was a common enough occurrence to have its own insurance category. She was carrying what she called a picnic basket and wearing what she described as casual Friday attire. "Hope you don't mind," she said, setting down the basket, "but we brought a variety of options.
Never know what other species can safely eat, you know?
Though I've got to say, you folks look pretty sturdy.
Deathworlders, right?"
KX puffed up with pride.
"Indeed. We evolved on a 2.1G planet with a caustic atmosphere." Sarah grinned. "Nice. We've got a colony on a planet like that.
Great for extreme sports tourism."
KX's mandibles dropped. You colonize worlds like ours for fun?" "Well, yeah. I mean, you've got to do something on your vacation, right? Can't spend all your time on those boring paradise worlds. No offense to the species that live there, but where's the excitement?
And perfect weather and no predators." The next few hours were a crash course in human insanity. Sarah and her crew shared stories that made KX's exoskeleton crawl, tales of humans deliberately jumping out of perfectly functional aircraft for entertainment, diving into the corrosive water that covered their planet to see what's down there, and intentionally climbing frozen mountains because they're there. But it was the food that really drove home just how different humans were. Sarah had thoughtfully brought environmental suits for the Eternal Curiosity's crew, explaining that some of the spices might be a bit much for unprotected respiratory systems.
She wasn't wrong.
KX watched in horror as Sarah casually bit into something she called a ghost pepper while explaining that it wasn't even close to the hottest thing humans ate for fun.
"Wait," Vina interrupted, her scientific curiosity overriding her survival instinct. "You're saying you deliberately cultivated plants that produce chemical irritants to make your food more interesting?"
"Oh, yeah."
Sarah beamed. "We've got this great restaurant back on Earth that makes you sign a waiver before they'll serve you their special sauce. It's fantastic."
The conversation eventually turned to military matters, as conversations between spacefaring species often do. KX was proud of the Zishi combat record. They were, after all, the Galactic Council's go-to species for handling hostile environments and dangerous missions.
"So," he said, trying to steer the conversation back to familiar ground, "I assume your species handles most of your civilization's high-risk military operations?" Sarah looked confused. "What?"
"No, we're mostly merchants and explorers.
Our military is pretty small, actually. We figured out pretty early that trading is more fun than fighting. But with your environmental tolerances, your physical capabilities."
KX sputtered.
"Oh, that?" Sarah laughed. "Yeah, we're pretty tough, I guess.
But we learned that you can get way more cool stuff by making friends and trading fairly than by trying to take it by force.
Plus, friends let you try their weird alien food."
It was at that moment that Karks had an epiphany. The Zishi had always seen their Deathworld origins as a source of martial pride, a reason to stand apart from the softer species of the galaxy. But humans had taken their remarkable durability and turned it into a source of connection, an opportunity to go places and meet people that others couldn't. "Sarah," Karks said slowly, "I believe this could be the beginning of a very interesting relationship between our species."
"Great." Sarah grinned. "Want to try some of this hot sauce? I promise it's only rated as a Class 3 chemical irritant by Galactic Council standards."
And that's how the galaxy's premier warrior race learned that there was more than one way to be a Deathworlder. The Zishi might have evolved to survive harsh conditions, but humans had evolved to turn those conditions into opportunities for fun, profit, and friendship. In the years that followed, human influence spread through the galaxy, not through force of arms, but through an infectious combination of curiosity, hospitality, and what they called extreme tourism. They established colonies on worlds other species considered uninhabitable, set up trading posts in the most unlikely places, and generally treated the galaxy's most dangerous environments as their personal playground. The Galactic Council eventually had to create an entirely new classification system for planetary hazards because humans kept colonizing worlds that were supposedly impossible to live on. They also had to revise their first contact protocols to include a section specifically about human food, with appropriate warning labels and liability waivers. KX went on to become the Galactic Council's chief liaison to human space, a position that required him to sample a lot of human cuisine. He developed quite a taste for something called extra spicy chicken wings, though he never quite worked up the courage to try the sauce that required a waiver. As for Sarah Chen, she parlayed her first contact experience into a successful chain of extreme environment restaurants that catered to both humans and other Deathworlders. Her flagship establishment, located on Earth in a place called Texas, became famous for its Supernova Challenge, a dish so spicy that it had to be prepared in a sealed clean room by staff in hazmat suits. The rest of the galaxy watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as humans continued to treat the most dangerous environments in known space as tourist destinations. They set up ski resorts on ice worlds, deep-sea hotels in ammonia oceans, and extreme hiking trails on planets with active volcanic regions. But perhaps the most telling sign of humanity's unique approach to the galaxy came in the form of a small addition to their standard ship's greeting. Where most species broadcast their credentials and peaceful intentions, human vessels added a simple postscript: "Greetings from Earth. We come in peace, bearing snacks. Environmental suits recommended." In the end, it turned out that being a Deathworlder wasn't about being the toughest or the strongest, it was about how you chose to use your abilities. And humans, in their peculiar wisdom, had chosen to use their remarkable durability to make friends, share meals, and turn the most hostile environments in the galaxy into vacation spots. The Zishi eventually adapted their own approach, opening a series of high-gravity fitness centers that became popular with humans looking for an extra challenge. Because if you can't beat them, and you definitely can't out-eat them, you might as well join them. And somewhere in the galaxy right now, there's probably a human asking an alien if they'd like to try something called a Carolina Reaper, while a Zishi environmental safety officer frantically waves warning flags in the background. With all due respect, Captain, Ambassador Lane's hologram flickered with barely contained agitation. You can't be serious about this cultural exchange program. KRX, now sporting several human merit badges for completing various extreme sports challenges, clicked his mandibles in amusement. I assure you, Ambassador, I'm perfectly serious. The humans have already agreed. But a joint academy, training both species young together? Have you seen their educational methods? I have, KX replied absent-mindedly, adjusting the "I survived human hot sauce" pin on his ceremonial armor. That's precisely why I proposed it. The ambassador's four eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of extreme distress among the Zishi. They teach their children survival skills by abandoning them in wilderness areas. They call it summer camp. Actually, a cheerful voice interrupted, that's just the basic course. Wait until you hear about our advanced wilderness leadership program. Sarah Chen, now sporting the impressive title of Human Galactic Relations Director and owner of the increasingly infamous restaurant chain Death by Dining, stepped into view. She was wearing what humans call a Hawaiian shirt, decorated with patterns of Earth's most dangerous predators. Sarah. KX's mandibles spread in what had become his approximation of a human smile. Perfect timing. I was just explaining to the ambassador about our new joint venture. Oh, you mean the Extreme Exchange Program? Sarah grinned. We've already got over 1,000 applications from human teenagers. They're super excited about learning high-G combat techniques from the Zishi. The ambassador's exoskeleton actually creaked from tension. And how many Zishi applications have we received? 327 so far, KX reported proudly, mostly from young ones who've been watching human extreme sports broadcasts. We're calling it Death World Academy, Sarah added helpfully, though legal made us add safety first to the official title. What followed was perhaps the most interesting educational experiment in galactic history. The first class of the Joint Death World Species Safety First Academy, JDSSFA, or Death School as the students immediately dubbed it, opened 6 standard months later on a specially chosen planet that both species found pleasantly challenging. The facility itself was a marvel of cross-species engineering. One wing maintained Earth-standard conditions, while another replicated the crushing gravity and caustic atmosphere of the Zishi homeworld. The common areas existed in a carefully maintained middle ground that both species found uncomfortably exciting. Welcome to orientation. Sarah stood before the assembled students, a mix of human teenagers practically vibrating with excitement and young Zishi trying very hard to maintain their species' traditional dignified bearing. Before we begin, please make sure you've signed all 14 pages of liability waivers.
And yes, the section about voluntary exposure to human cooking is mandatory. KX, standing beside her as co-administrator, added, "Remember, the goal here is not just survival, but understanding. Each species has something to teach the other."
The first few weeks were interesting. The human students took to high-gravity training with characteristic enthusiasm, turning what was supposed to be a grueling endurance exercise into something they called extreme parkour. The Zishi instructors watched in horror as their carefully designed obstacle course became a playground for backflipping teenagers and gits. Meanwhile, the young Zishi discovered something their species had never considered: fun could be a powerful training motivator. Their natural durability, combined with human creativity, led to the invention of several new sports that would later be banned in 3 sectors of the galaxy. But it was in the classroom that the most surprising developments occurred. So, Jennifer Martinez, a 16-year-old from Earth, raised her hand during xenobiology class. "You're saying that most species consider both our worlds completely uninhabitable?" "Correct," the instructor, Dr. Vina, who had eagerly transferred from the Eternal Curiosity to study this unprecedented experiment, confirmed. The combination of environmental hazards on either Earth or Zishi Prime would be lethal to approximately 98% of known sapient species. "Cool." Jennifer turned to her Zishi lab partner, Till. "Want to help me with my science project? I've got this idea for an extreme environment cooking show." Till, who had already developed a concerning addiction to human energy drinks, clicked enthusiastically. "Only if you'll help me test my theory about using your Earth bungee jumping techniques in our gravity wells." Dr. Vina made a note to update the liability waivers again. The Academy's first major crisis came during what humans called Parents' Weekend. The facility's kitchens, attempting to cater to both species' tastes, accidentally cross-contaminated a Zishi protein dish with human hot sauce. The resulting chemical reaction melted 3 tables and created a new compound that was immediately classified as a controlled substance by the Galactic Council. The human parents thought it was hilarious. The Zishi parents were impressively stoic about the whole thing, though several were seen secretly sampling the remains of the contaminated dish when they thought no one was looking. But the real breakthrough came during the end-of-term projects. Till and Jennifer's presentation, titled Extreme Environment Fusion Cuisine, a study in cross-species gastrokinoliths, their demonstration of how to safely combine Zishi mineral supplements with human spices created what they called super hot sauce, a condiment that technically qualified as a terraforming agent. Other notable projects included a modified high-gravity skateboard, later patented and mass-produced, a universal environmental suit that could handle both Earth's oxygen-rich atmosphere and Zishi Prime's caustic conditions, a new extreme sport called gravitational chess that somehow combined strategic thinking with freefall combat, and a cooking method that used Earth's lightning strikes to prepare traditional Zishi dishes. The Academy's success led to some unexpected diplomatic developments. Other species, watching from a safe distance, began to realize that perhaps they had been too quick to write off the deadly sectors of the galaxy. If humans and Zishi could not only survive but actively enjoy such conditions, maybe there was something to learn from their approach. The Galactic Council, faced with the undeniable success of the program and only 3 minor explosions, reluctantly approved funding for an expanded exchange initiative. They did, however, insist on maintaining a minimum safe distance for observation. Sarah Chen, reviewing the first year's results, couldn't stop grinning. "See? I told you it would work. Nothing brings people together like shared danger and good food." KX, who had finally worked up the courage to try the legendary waiver-requiring hot sauce and only spent 3 days in medical recovery, nodded. "Indeed. Though perhaps we should reconsider allowing the students to name their own training exercises. I'm still not sure yeet or be yeeted properly conveys the gravitational physics involved." The Academy's motto, suggested by the first graduating class and approved despite the administration's better judgment, said it all: "What doesn't kill you makes you hungrier." And somewhere in the galaxy, a new generation of humans and Zishi are discovering that the most dangerous thing about being a Deathworlder isn't the environment, it's the ideas you get when you meet someone else who thinks your deadly homeworld sounds like a fun place to visit. The second year's applications doubled, the liability waiver grew to 20 pages, and the galaxy watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as 2 species of Deathworlders learned that education was a lot more interesting when there was a chance of explosions. As Sarah likes to say, in space, no one can hear you scheme, but they can definitely hear the boom when your chemistry project gets a little too creative. This is absolutely unprecedented, the Galactic Council Health and Safety Inspector declared, his protective suit whirring as its filters worked overtime. I'm looking at what appears to be a voluntary vacation destination on a Class N death world. Welcome to Extreme Horizons Resort and Spa. Sarah Chen beamed, now sporting both her restaurant chain owner credentials and her newly minted title of Chief Experience Officer at the galaxy's first cross-species extreme tourism company. Would you like to try our signature acid rain mud bath? It's very exfoliating. The inspector's environmental suit gave a concerned beep as it detected yet another potentially lethal environmental hazard.
Ms. Chen, there are active volcanoes within viewing distance of the main lodge.
Oh, yes.
KX chimed in, his exoskeleton gleaming with a fresh coating of protective resin. That's why we chose this location. The lava flows provide excellent ambient heating for our spa treatments, and the volcanic lightning makes for spectacular evening entertainment.
The inspector scrolled through his data pad with increasing distress. Your activities list includes anti-gravity bungee jumping into active geysers.
Don't worry, Sarah reassured him, we have a comprehensive waiver system, and the rescue drones are top of the line. They were designed by our first graduating class at the academy. Indeed, the resort was the latest joint venture between humanity and the Zishi, staffed largely by graduates of the now famous Death School.
The facility itself was a testament to what happened when you combine human hospitality concepts with Zishi engineering. The main lodge, a stunning piece of architecture that somehow managed to look both inviting and like it could withstand a direct meteor strike, housed 3 different atmospheric zones. The human section maintained Earth-standard conditions, complete with what they called a weather room that simulated various Earth natural disasters for homesick guests. The Zishi wing recreated their homeworld's crushing gravity and caustic atmosphere, featuring what they marketed as relaxing acid pools. But it was the common area that really showcased the insanity of the venture. Designed to be challenging yet survivable for both species, it had quickly become the galaxy's hottest meeting spot for thrill-seeking diplomats.
And here's our premier restaurant.
Sarah gestured proudly to a reinforced structure with hazard warnings in 12 languages, the last resort, where every meal is an adventure.
The restaurant had already gained notoriety throughout the galaxy.
Its head chef, none other than Jennifer Martinez, the former Death School student who had invented super hot sauce, had created a menu that required graduated tolerance testing before guests could advance to the higher tiers.
We've had to update our insurance policy 6 times this month alone, Karks noted proudly. Apparently, we're now classified as our own category of risk.
The inspector watched in horror as a group of human tourists cheerfully headed towards something called the Lightning Surfing Experience, while a family of Zishi youth eagerly signed up for Extreme Sports, Hurricane Edition.
But why, he finally managed to ask.
Well, Sarah explained, helping a Zishi guest adjust their I survived Earth gravity anti-rush suit, we realized something important during our educational exchange program. Both our species evolved to not just survive extreme conditions, but to adapt and thrive in them.
So why not share that perspective with the rest of the galaxy? Karks nodded, his mandibles clicking in amusement as he watched a mixed group of humans and Zishi playing something they called volcanic volleyball.
Besides, he added, you haven't lived until you've tried deep-sea fishing in a methane ocean. The catch may be toxic to most species, but the views are spectacular.
The resort's success spawned a whole new industry.
Soon, Extreme Horizons locations were popping up on death worlds throughout the galaxy. Each resort specialized in showcasing the unique hazards of its location, turning what other species considered lethal environmental conditions into tourist attractions. Popular packages included the Lightning Strike Golf Challenge on Electric Storm Prime, Zero-G wrestling in the crushing gravity wells of Neutron Beach Resort, acid rain rafting adventures in the caustic rivers of Marine 6, and sandstorm surfing on the glass deserts of Silica Major.
But perhaps the most surprising development came from the resort's unexpected role in galactic diplomacy.
It turned out that something about facing potential death by entertainment made traditional diplomatic tensions seem rather trivial. It's hard to maintain a species rivalry, Sarah often observed, when you're both trying to survive the ultimate death world decathlon. The resort's conference center, built to withstand everything from meteor strikes to quantum fluctuations, became a popular location for difficult diplomatic negotiations. More than one intergalactic treaty was signed in the aftermath of what became known as survival bonding sessions. The inspector's final report to the Galactic Council was succinct. While I cannot in good conscience approve of any of this, I must admit that the safety protocols are impressively thorough, if only because both humans and Zishi seem to enjoy surviving increasingly improbable situations. He added a personal note: also, the gift shop selection of I Cheated Death on My Vacation merchandise is surprisingly extensive. The resort's success led to yet another collaborative venture. Sarah and KX announced the creation of Death World Adventures, an educational tourism company specializing in what they called survival tourism experiences. Think of it as a gap year program, Sarah explained to a horrified panel of galactic education officials, but with more lava. The first group of students, a mix of various species under the guidance of human and Zishi instructors, set out to explore the galaxy's most dangerous environments. Their blog, Dancing with Death Responsibly, became an instant hit. Entries included how to make friends with local megapredators, note, results may vary, top 10 most delicious, possibly toxic, plants, fashion guide, accessorizing your environmental suit, and dating across species when your idea of a fun first date involves possible death. The Galactic Council eventually created a new department specifically to handle what they termed human-Zishi collaborative insanity. The department's first action was to establish a new hazard classification system that included the category technically survivable, human/Zishi standard. And somewhere in the galaxy right now, a human and a Zishi are probably planning their next relaxing vacation to a planet that would kill most species instantly. They'll probably open a coffee shop there. As Sarah likes to say, in the hospitality industry, you haven't really made it until your establishment requires a quantum physicist to calculate the insurance premiums. The resort's latest addition? A time-dilated bungee jumping experience near a black hole. The waiver for that one is still being written. The galaxy may never be the same, but at least it's never boring. And the gift shop does amazing business. Breaking news across the Galactic Information Network. The holographic announcer's tentacles waved with barely contained excitement. The latest season of Survival, Death World Edition has broken all previous viewing records, with an estimated 40% of the galaxy's population tuning in for last night's finale. The show, a joint production between human and Zishi entertainment companies, had become the galaxy's most unlikely cultural phenomenon. The premise was simple: take contestants from various standard environment worlds and have them attempt to complete challenges designed by humans and Zishi, all while learning to appreciate the charm of Death World living. Can you believe, Sarah Chen mused, watching the broadcast from her office in the newly constructed Extreme Horizons corporate tower, built to withstand direct asteroid impacts, naturally, that just 3 years ago, most species wouldn't even consider visiting a Class 4 world? KX, now sporting the impressive title of Galactic Minister of Extreme Tourism and Cultural Exchange, clicked his mandibles in amusement. My favorite part was when that Flunian contestant discovered they could use their natural buoyancy to surf Earth's hurricane winds. The latest season had featured everything from cooking challenges using volatile Earth ingredients to survival exercises in Zishi gravity wells. The finale, which involved a scavenger hunt through an active volcanic range while dodging lightning strikes, had kept the galaxy on the edge of their seats. But the show's true appeal lay in its ability to showcase the repercussions extended far beyond mere entertainment. Minister Kirks, a youthful Zishi, rushed into the office, their exoskeletons still faintly steaming from their morning's challenging commute through the acid rain. The Galactic Council's Cultural Exchange Committee had just disseminated its annual report. The report, presented in shimmering holographic script, recounted an astonishing tale. In the 3 years since the establishment of the joint Death World Species Safety First Academy and the subsequent tourism initiatives, there had been a 300% surge in cross-species adaptation training programs. More surprisingly, species that had historically shunned any form of environmental challenge were now proactively seeking controlled exposure experiences. Check out these figures, Sarah exclaimed, scrolling through the data. The Flans have established their own gravity acclimatization centers. The crystallines are offering extreme temperature resistance workshops. Even the Vaporus have initiated a solid-state appreciation society. The cultural transformation didn't end there. Fashion trends throughout the galaxy now integrated elements of human and Zishi protective apparel. Battle-scarred chic, as fashion magazines termed it, had become the latest craze. Environmental suits were no longer simply functional, they had evolved into status symbols, with the most coveted designs featuring authentic scorch marks from earth lightning or acid etching from Zex storms.
Even gastronomy had undergone a revolution.
Jennifer Martinez's The Last Resort had given rise to an entirely new category of dining establishment, the survival restaurant. These establishments offered increasingly adventurous species the chance to sample carefully regulated portions of human and SCI cuisine, complete with medical teams on standby.
Did you see the latest application numbers for next year's Academy class? KX inquired, summoning another holographic display. We've got candidates from 27 species that were previously categorized as extremely environmentally sensitive. The Academy itself had evolved.
What began as a human SCI exchange program had blossomed into the galaxy's premier institution for cross-species adaptation training. The curriculum now encompassed everything from introductory breathing in optional environments to advanced interspecies emergency response techniques.
But perhaps the most profound shift was occurring in galactic politics.
Another trade delegation requested